from the start. Georgia boy bred, Florida boy raised. Any adversity I will face. Whatever it takes, real ones can relate. The greatest from my city, it is not for debate. Jacksonville, Florida, reppin' FLA, scream Duval. Record shatterer, the X Factor. I took the world by storm, then my pockets got fatter. Can't tame me, an animal believe. Raised by Fred and Azaleen. I'm a boy EB, riding coupes and limousines. 44 to 40, Patriot Nation. No hesitation, feel the vibration. Legendary ain't the question, I'm the greatest. Legendary ain't the question, I'm amazing. Legendary ain't the question, how did I make it? Legendary ain't the question, I'm Elgin Davis. Legendary ain't the question, I'm the greatest. Legendary ain't the question, I'm amazing. Legendary ain't the question, how did I make it? Legendary ain't the question, I'm Elgin Davis.
What if I told you giants have been living amongst us? A true living legend on and off the field. A man of honor and a man of faith. Once considered the underdog, they said he was too small, not strong enough, not fast enough, wasn't good enough, that he would never rise to the top. What they couldn't witness for themselves was his work ethic, the sweat pouring forth long after the game had ended, long after his competitors had gone home. The extra push-ups, the extra miles run, his very will pushing him to be bigger, stronger, faster, better.
Is Elgin Davis for the New England Patriots.
For it was what was within that fortified him. He fought, bled, and died for it. Put simply, the man earned it. He left his mark and proved that all things are possible for those who believe.
This ain't just about football or about big houses, fancy cars. This is about determination and character. It's about integrity.
It's about faith and commitment.
This is about humility and perseverance. It's about courage, grit, But most important, it's about loyalty and family. It's about a man.
But not just about any man. It's about our dad.
This is Elgin Davis, known by those who know him as ED. He is one of the world's premier sales executives in the vacation ownership industry. During his illustrious 17-year sales career, he has helped countless families achieve what he never had as a kid, an opportunity to see the world. He is much respected and revered in the industry.
Since I've known him, he's always been a top performer wherever he goes. And there's one outstanding quality that separates him from really anyone else I've ever met in this business. And that is his ability to create a relationship, friendship, nearly instantly.
Elgin is visiting his alma mater, the University of Central Florida. It's been nearly a decade since he stepped foot on campus, and he's ready to reunite with his coaches and meet the UCF football team. This is the untold story of Elgin Davis, 44 to 40 docufilm.
Elgin Davis has to be in the top 3 great players that we've ever had. And I don't even know who the first 2 is.
We could have 95 of him, we'd be champions every year.
If anyone knows him, you would read that the main characteristic of Elgin is that he has a heart of gold. He's a gift to anyone who has the grace and wisdom to appreciate who he really is.
My desire is that the good Lord will continue to guide your steps.
The light in his eyes, the fire in his soul.
And that he will make your way smooth instead of crooked.
He's really taking it to another level.
And when you are afraid, that he gives you confidence and strength.
And one thing about that man, not only his loyalty, but his integrity. I give my life for him.
Your strong drive and good work ethics and determination to succeed makes me work harder, push myself to overcome any obstacles that are in my way.
Elgin was a little bit different. He had more focus, more dedication.
And what a brother, a friend. God couldn't have put a better person in my life.
He's actually a really cool person, like a genuine person. Someone in his position shouldn't care. They genuinely shouldn't. They shouldn't care about anything but themselves. But he puts himself in a position where he can be of a benefit to other people.
Over half of the black men would be incarcerated or murdered. No one was unaffected, and few ever went on to achieve the American dream.
You know, you guys, it's not easy, man. But you know you can make it out this thing, right?
ED is back in the neighborhood, encouraging the youth to become their best.
But you gotta do the right thing. You cannot fall in these traps, man, that's been set for you, all right? You gotta be strong mentally, you gotta be strong spiritually, all right? And you gotta believe in your gift. You gotta do that, young brother. And the reason I'm telling you this right here, man, I was no different. I grew up right there, man, right there.
Positivity in the community, but I gotta show them what we're dealing with, man. Because they not believing none of this, man.
They gotta help. They wanna see it.
They're not believing none of this, man.
They wanna see it.
Hey, man, we trying to get y'all some help, man. I gotta send it to some people so we can get some money.
Sometimes all it takes is a word, a positive message.
I'm 88 years old.
She got beautiful. She looking like a young woman. Hey, she come here, man.
This is Ann Herden. She's been a neighbor in the community since 1944.
88. 1944.
you remember when I was a little boy living there?
Yeah, you was a little boy living there with Miss Day.
You remember when he was born?
Yeah, what you talking about?
We grew up here together, man, way back in the day.
That's right.
And to come back here, man, and you look amazing, by the way. You look, man, let me tell you what, you like new money this hand.
I'll be 89, October 1st.
Oh, well, you keep up what you're doing, all right?
All right.
I love you.
I love you too.
Sometimes it can make a big difference in someone's life. It made a difference in mine. And maybe it'll make a difference in someone else's.
Growing up in Jacksonville, Florida, was Elgin's reality. Statistically, it meant that you wouldn't amount to much. Living wasn't easy in the hood, and escaping the vortex of the high-crime, high-drug community was even harder.
Where I grew up at, in Jacksonville, man, there was a great divide between blacks and whites.
The 60s were painful memories for E.D. and his family.
Blacks lived on one side of town. Whites lived on the other side of town. We went to black schools, shopped at black establishments. We also went to black churches. Whites went to First Baptist and black went to Second Baptist. Man, segregation was the law of the land, and there was nothing that we could do about it.
It is very appropriate that from this cradle of the Confederacy, this very heart of the great Anglo-Saxon Southland, that today we sound the drum for freedom. And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
It was horrible. It was racial tension everywhere. And I tell you what, you can feel the tension. There was no justice, and there was no peace. I remember there were groups that was formed to help black people to advance. There was SNCC, there was CORE, there was the NAACP, and who can forget Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton and the Black Panther Party.
We are bound to transform society and erect a system where people will receive justice.
There was also the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
I'm saying you talking about me about some draft, and all of you white boys are breaking your neck to get to Switzerland and Canada and London. I'm not going to help nobody get something my Negroes don't have. If I'm going to die, I'll die now, right here fighting you. If I'm going to die, you my enemy. My enemy is the white people, not Viet Congs or Chinese or Japanese. You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
And all these groups wanted to do was to advance black people and our plight for freedom, justice, and equality.
The Nation of Islam became a powerful voice in the civil rights movement and sparked political and social change throughout Black America.
So yes, there are major differences between the civil rights movement and the nation, but keep in mind, man, that all of our black organizations, their main goal was to advance black people in our struggle in America. But each organization had a different method in which they felt they were able to accomplish the goal. So the civil rights movement under the leadership of Dr. King, as you know, was a one of nonviolence. It was one of integration.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.
And there's nothing wrong with integration. We are social beings, and there's nothing wrong with getting along with others outside of your race and your culture. But white America was very harsh on black people. The civil rights movement meant that we had to have dogs that were sick on our pregnant wives, that we couldn't have coffee in a restaurant next to you, that we had to go in the back of the bus and sit down, that we were called all kind of racial slurs and names, that we wasn't given justice. See, the nation didn't believe in that. The nation felt that we would not dehumanize ourselves and be treated anyway just to be integrated with you. The nation felt that, hey, if you don't want us, you don't have to love us, but we will love ourselves. So guess what? We're going to open our own restaurants, and we're going to have our own banks and our own movie theaters and our own business in our community. And if you didn't want to serve us, we were going to serve ourselves. The nation believed in self-preservation.
My religion is a natural religion, and the first law of nature is self-preservation.
And if you were willing to respect us like we will respect you, then integration is a cool thing. But we wasn't going to give up our independence to be mistreated by anybody. That was the major difference between the nation and the civil rights movement. So there was a big contrast in the two, but both organizations wanted to achieve the same goal in mind.
But Elgin and I were so close, and Elgin looked forward to seeing me every day. And I would go pick him up and take him home. And the same way, not only did he want to see me, I wanted to be with him, my baby.
Nobody touched Elgin's heart more than his mother, Azaline, who worked odd jobs to support him. Their lives weren't easy, but the early hardships forged a bond that would last a lifetime.
My mom was sweet, man. She was patient. She was soft-spoken. She was charming. In simple words, my mom, man, was just absolutely beautiful, man.
Elgin is eager to see his mom. It's been nearly 5 months since they've seen each other due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Come on, Mom. Look at my mom. Look how pretty she is. She's 78 years old. Mom.
Oh, you look gorgeous.
Hey, Mama.
111 Rushing Street was the family home located in Jacksonville's west side.
Which matter of fact, this is where Elgin was born. I was living here after his father and I married in 63. Elgin was born in 65. A blue house, it was a block home, a blue home, and I would work. Elgin would, I would get off from work, Elgin would be here with his grandmother, and every day when I come in for work, he would stand to this fence waiting for me to come home. And the minute he would see me turn that curve, he would be running. He would run to me and jump in my arms. Elgin, my one and only son, first of all, because I just love him. And I love him for, in so many ways, different ways, because of who he is.
I just love my mom. I love her with all of my heart. I love her with everything I have, man. She is truly the apple of my heart. I love you, Mom.
Elgin's father was a local sports legend.
He was the life of the party. My dad walked into a room and everything just lights up, man. He was charismatic, man. He had the personality that would win anybody over. My dad, however, man, he was a great basketball player, man. And Dad actually named me after his favorite player in the NBA at that time. His name was Elgin Baylor, and Elgin played for the LA Lakers back in the day. So Dad wanted me to play basketball.
Fred was known as a hustler, playing pool and collecting aluminum cans to earn extra cash.
I think I may run this table. Man, this reminds me of my pops. My pops used to play pool all the time. That's how he bought his first car. So Daddy used to work at a little truck joint. There was a pool table, they had music playing on stage. He was in the middle of the hood. That's what Pops used to work at.
In the 60s, segregation forced black entertainers to perform in the hood, and some of Motown's best performed at Fred's Juke Joint.
They used to call it the Chitlin Circuit, way back then. And the #1 Chitlin Circuit venue in Jacksonville was my dad's Juke Joint. Man, my dad met all of the great legendary entertainers back in the day. He used to sneak me out the bed when I was just a little arm baby, take me to the club, to the Juke Joint, where famous people used to come. I got my first baby picture signed by Jackie Wilson. You guys know Jackie Wilson. David Ruffin with the Temptations. You remember that guy? There was Sam Cooke, man. Al Green. All the Motown people, man. They knew my pops, man. My pops was like super connected, right? Well, Pops told me the person that he admired the most was not an entertainer. He was a civil rights leader. His name was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He met Dr. King, his wife, Coretta Scott King, and I think that really touched my pops, man. To me, iconic figures, man, like Dr. King and all of them. Pops, I think about you every day, man. I think about all of the things that you taught me. The game of pool, the game of life. I love you and I miss you, Pops. Man, take a look at this, man.
Is this something?
This is what I used to play at. My big wheels, all that kind of stuff.
But I remember those childhood years. It was my first friend out there, and it was tough being out there. You had to be tough, and he was tougher than nails. But it was sure tough living in Flash Street, that project. But we had some good times as kids and miss him. So, good guy.
Hey, Mom, I think
we was on the 3rd floor.
Listen, man, this is where we were at, on the third floor, man. Flag Street apartment. In the 60s, man, that was the sound of Motown. I mean, man, Motown allowed black people, man, to tolerate the pain of our injustice a little bit better. And it was nothing like going to the party on the weekends, man, and listening to the sounds of Motown. Hey, listen, there was my man Marvin Gaye. There was the Four Tops, the Supremes. Who can forget James Brown? I'm Black and I'm Proud. Man, there was so many groups. Al Green. And my mom and my dad, man, they loved music. But there was one group in particular that stood out above them all. And that was the Temptations. I remember so many times, man, my dad coming in the house late at night, and Dad used to be talking about boom, 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 boom. I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. Boom, boom. And Dad used to say, my girl. Yeah, man, that's how it was back in the 60s with my pops, man.
As a child, the Welfare Bridge was a common destination on weekends for Elgin and his father. E.D. continues to enjoy fishing.
So look, guys, me and my dad, man, we used to do this just about every weekend. We had one special place we used to go to. It was called the Welfare Bridge. Give you one guess why it was called the Welfare Bridge. You got it. A lot of poor people there, man. we was not fishing out of leisure. Bruh, we was fishing for food. We was hungry. One time he got this bite, his pole went all the way down, right? I said, Daddy, you got one. Daddy yanked so hard, and he pulled, nothing came back on the line. But guess what was on the hook? You would never believe what was on the hook when he reeled it in. It was the fish's lips.
I feel that killing is a very tragic way to deal with any social problem. There is no violent solution to the problem that the Negro confronts in this country, and this is why I have constantly said that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating.
Elgin's father, his love of sport was only eclipsed by his love of drink and having a good time.
My dad had started drinking real heavy. As a child, what do you do when you're 5 or 6 years old and your dad is struggling with alcoholism?
Elgin's confidence and self-worth was shattered by his father's uncontrollable alcohol addiction.
I remember one day, man, my grandmama said, go get your dad. Hey man, it's time for dinner. And I knew exactly where to go. Cherry's Bar, man. It was a local bar right around the corner from the house, and Daddy used to just stay there night and day with his friends and drinking. And so I had to be about 5 years old, walking in the community looking for my dad.
Fred's lifestyle led to the couple's divorce. Elgin was devastated and became withdrawn and reclusive.
Man, that was a painful time for me because, man, the two people that I loved the most in the world went their separate ways. My mom, she ended up remarrying. She married a pastor. And man, that was a different experience.
Elgin's stepfather, the Reverend Joseph L. James, helped young E.D. find inner strength and encouraged him to develop his spirituality.
I had something that I could feed off spiritually. He gave me discipline. He gave me a whole different perspective. But me and my dad was just still close. Nothing could break that bond. And so my dad, man, he struggled for 10 years as an alcoholic. But then he turned it around. My dad turned his life over to Christ, man.
Through it all, I've learned to trust in God. Is there anybody here, who've been through the fire?
And Dad let go the bottle. My dad went for the next 20 years without having one drink. And he became the father that I always knew he was capable of being. So by that time, Dad got his act together. And Dad worked at a little modest place. It's called Standard Feed Company. Dad got a job. Pops only made about $3 an hour. But that's okay, man. He was employed. He was living well, man. And he wanted my mom back. He never got over my mom. He wanted his family back. But by that time, it was a little bit too late. There was another man in the picture.
Legendary ain't the question. I'm the greatest. Legendary ain't the question. I'm amazing. Legendary ain't the question. How did I make it?
This is Standard Feed Company, a place where Elgin's father, Fred Davis, worked as a laborer for nearly 15 years. As a child, Elgin spends his free time at this store, helping his father with daily chores, where he learned hard work.
Anything that has to do with farming, man, this is how I grew up. And most of my time I spent here with my dad, helping him put together stuff like this. You see where it says the fish mill? We used to take this fish mill and people come in and they throw this out in the water, and this is how you used to catch fish. So my dad used to bag this up. He used to bag it up, cracked corn for chicken feed. So this is how my dad worked, man. He only made about $3 an hour. So we grew up with chickens in the yard. And the good thing about it, everything that we needed to take care of the chickens, Dad was able to get for a discount. Somebody else I gotta mention to you. And that's Jay. That's my dad's mom. Look, man, Jay was born in 1900. Man, she was a strong black woman who was very independent. Man, Jay and I, we came up close. You wouldn't believe, I was her only grandson. And me and her, we had some special memories, a whole lot of memories. Jay used to keep me a lot because Mom had to work and she would drop me off to Jay's house. And man, we had so many memories. I can see it like it was yesterday. She was sitting in a wheelchair and she would watch the Mike Douglas show. Now Jay used to like to dip snuff, Navy snuff, and she had a spit can and she would dip that stuff and she would spit. And I used to watch all the time. My grandmother Jay, she was a woman of the land. Before she was confined to a wheelchair, she grew her own vegetables, man. And she ate all kind of stuff that you wouldn't find in a grocery store. Stuff like coon and possum, squirrels and rabbits, and gopher turtles, and blue jays and sparrows, and all kind of little stuff like that.
Watching his grandmother's constant struggle humbled young Elgin and made him appreciate the simple pleasures.
She lives off about $300 a month, didn't she?
About $300 a month. How you make it off of $300 a month, man? She couldn't afford the luxury things that we have today. I never once seen my grandmother eat in a restaurant. I never saw my grandmother ever drive a car. I never seen my grandmother have a washing machine or a dryer. You know what we used? It's called a scrub board. That's how we washed our clothes in the bathtub, man. We didn't have a dryer, none of that. We had a clothesline, and we used to hang our clothes on the line and let the sun dry them. That's how we made it. All Jay wanted in life was to see her seed advance, to have more in life, man, that she had. She just wanted us to have an equal opportunity to achieve to our fullness and greatness in life. You know, to have the opportunity to fight for freedom, justice, and equality, to pursue life, liberty, yeah, and the pursuits of happiness. That was my grandmother, Jay. I want to tell you, man, Jay, I miss you so much. And I will never be the man that I am today without your love and your guidance. Thank you, Jay.
But E.D. was surrounded by the love of his family, who insulated him from grim realities surrounding him.
Like a team, my mom brought the patience. She brought the spiritual essence, just calm, cool, collected. My dad, man, he brought to the table the physical gifts, the charisma, the spirit. And my grandmother, yeah, man, she brought the history. So all three of them gave to me their gift so that my journey can be more successful than theirs.
Another thing, that Elgin was a good son. He was an obedient son. He listened and he showed a lot of love to his mother, to his father, relatives that was around him. Always been a very caring child.
Legendary ain't the question, I'm the greatest. Legendary ain't the question, I'm amazing. Legendary ain't the question, how did I make it? Legendary ain't the question, I'm Elgin Davis.
And he was kind of a loner, being an only child. He was always, quiet. He would go in his room and he would stay for hours all day, pretending he was or playing football on his little football game thing that he had. Always serious-minded. Liked to write because he liked to write down what he wanted to be and what he was going to do and everything.
As children growing up in the Harborview, we lived about 7 or so doors down from each other. We all would see each other on our walks to elementary school. He was always a kind, quiet, almost shy, tender-hearted person.
ED, it's nothing that I can't say negative of him. We never had an argument as kids. You know, you always had your differences. We never had that. He always was a peacemaker. If he sees somebody out there, he gonna make peace with them.
I had to find a way, man, to challenge my hurt from missing my pops into something.
In 1973, Elgin watched the movie Brian's Song, which inspired Elgin to play football.
Brian Piccolo died of cancer at the age of 26. He left a wife and 3 daughters. He also left a great many loving friends who miss him and think of him often. But when they think of him, it's not how he died that they remember, but rather how he lived.
I can tell you one thing for sure. If it wasn't for Gale Sayers, I probably wouldn't have made the NFL or been inspired to go to the NFL or play football. I finally got a chance to meet Gale Sayers, and I told him the influence that he had on my life. And man, you should have seen the smile that came on his face. All I can say to you is thank you, Gale Sayers, for giving me a great example and inspiring me to be an NFL player. Rest in peace, brother. I love you. Soon, I joined the football team. My mom was a little reluctant because, you know, she didn't want to see her baby boy get hurt. Football is a tough game, man.
I was so afraid for him. I didn't want him to do that, so at the time, my husband was his stepfather. He talked to him and said, let him play. He was a rough little boy. He would say to me, this is what he needs to do. He needs something to get that roughness out of him, he said. So we decided to let him do that, and he went and he done very, very well.
Mom and Dad gave me permission, so did my stepfather. And my first football team was in 1973, man. I played with a team called the Forest View Trojans, man.
Playing football drew Elgin out of his shell, and he rushed back into the world. Elgin had instant success with the Forest View Trojans. The loner had become a teammate, and even more than that, a leader. Other players elected him team captain, and he earned the team's Most Valuable Player award. These achievements affected Elgin's parents immeasurably.
This is where it all started.
This is Yancey Park, home of the Forest View Trojans.
On Jacksonville's north side.
Hello, my name is Coach Clay, coach of Reebok Rattlers in 1977-78. I was a defensive coordinator for the Pop Warner football team. I became to know Elgin Davis was in 1977. We played them cross-team rival in a game. And our defense was 7-0, nobody had ever scored on us. About the third or fourth play of the game, Mr. Davis broke out the pack, ran down the sideline, 75-yard touchdown pass. Coach Roach came over to me and he said, Coach, what happened? Well, I said, Coach, he's mighty fast. He said, we gotta have him.
This is where my dad would be at. And all you can hear that joker saying is, that's my son.
We lost the game by 14 games. We lost the game. But Elgin Davis was the truth.
It was Coach Roach who embraced and helped a young ED to reach his goals on and off the football field.
I want to say to you, acknowledge you, man, in front of the world.
Thank you, man.
Say, hey, man, Coach, I love you.
I believe you do, man.
I do love you. And you know what? You've already proved that you love me, man, because, you know, you was willing to correct the errors I was making because you wanted me to be successful.
Yeah, bro.
You gave me push when I wanted to give up, you know? You gave me direction. Then you put the right people around me to give me a team so I can be the best that I can be.
In his bedroom, on the back of his door, he wrote,
Chicago Bears, here I come. And when I did that, my mom came into the room later and she saw her door was messed up with chalk. And I got scolded. And my stepfather said, no, leave him alone. Do you see his passion? We can use that passion. We just gotta guide it. And we're gonna guide that passion through his love for football. And from day one, man, I was a natural on the football field, man. So I just kept on playing ball, man. And that year, I had my first tragedy. I broke my arm.
This was only the beginning of injuries, but more would soon follow. It was a rough time for E.D., but his early foundation prepared him to deal with adversity.
I never forget, I made a pledge, I'm never playing football again. That's when I had to learn how to make adjustments. I had to learn how to use the other gifts that God had given me when one gift was taken away. It wasn't easy, but determination and faith and persistence made me become great at writing with my left arm instead of my right arm. Man, I was growing up, man, real fast. My dad, you wouldn't believe this if I told you. He never missed a football game in 16 years. Man, what a wonderful feeling to have your dad by your side. My pops was right there, cheering me on to victory, man. That year, we went to a championship football game and we lost that game. And that was the first time I felt the emotional pain from losing. And we all cried. We all had to be about 10 years old at the time. So dealing with a loss wasn't easy. And my dad, man, he came on the field and he taught me the lesson of humility. Daddy taught me how to bow in grace and dignity because he knew that losing was a part of winning. And it was how I would accept losing that would give me the greatest success when I won. That's what I miss about my pops, man.
This is the untold story of Elgin Davis, 44 to 40 docufilm.
I'm a boy EB riding coupes and limousines. 44 to 40, Patriot Nation, no hesitation, feel the vibration.
He was a little boy. The air froze in for him then, and I used to have to plait his hair every night. Sometimes pull it out with a hot comb because it would be so thick and packed down. I didn't have any oil to put on his hair. And I remember that I had fried some chicken one night and I had saved some of the oil from the frying the chicken. And boy, I said, oh boy, we got it now. I got some grease we can put on his hair. So we got the grease and parted his hand, put some down to the scalp, the root of it, and put some on the edge and I could straighten it. And so it straightened out. So he went to school the next day with that in his head. And he said the kids there gave him a rough time about that. They started smelling chicken in the classroom. And say the chicken was smelling so till he just had to come out and tell where the chicken was sick. It was coming from him. Everybody could smell the chicken was coming from him to smell.
In 1977, man, something happened, man. Daddy took me on my first vacation. It was in a place called Asheville, North Carolina. I never forget it, man. So, Daddy had an old cigar box that he put in the closet. He had about $300 in there. And that's what we took on our first vacation, man. So Daddy told me, he said, son, I want you to go buy you some shoes. And I never forget, I got me a pair of red high top Chuck Taylors. Then he said, I want you to buy some music. And I bought me a cassette. No, it was an 8-track cassette player at the time. Them big fat ones that you put in, man. But it was Parliament Funkadelic, man. And me and my pops, man, we went to the mountains. And when I got there, I'm like, whoa, look at people living, man. Condos and waterfalls and resorts. I like that. That's when I knew we were poor. Like, Daddy, man, why we don't live like this? And me and my dad, we bonded like we never did before, man. That changed my life. At the end, Daddy went to talk to a man about vacationing like this every year. It was called timeshare. But Daddy was too proud to tell the man he couldn't afford it. So my daddy told him no. That's the first time my daddy saw me cry, man. I just wanted to be with him every year like that. And I made myself a promise, if I ever made money, I was going to get one of them for me and my dad.
Whose house?
Elgin had instant success with the Forest View Trojans. The loner had become a teammate, and even more than that, a leader.
I think football gave me internal foundations that I would need to be successful. Things such as discipline, accountability, hard work ethics, working together in a team environment, learning how to be unselfish, being able to work when things wasn't comfortable in adverse conditions, being able to fight through pain, through fear. I mean, it was a bundle of things that were contained in the game of football that I would use to be successful as a young man. And so by now, hard work was starting to pay off, man. I was approaching junior high school. The year had to be somewhere around 1979, 78. I'm in junior high school now. And I played for the junior high football team. The competition was much greater. The guys were much bigger. The guys was much faster. I couldn't rely on what I did yesterday. Look, man, I had to go grind. I had to want it even more. But I also had to be a great student.
Elgin went on to play baseball, basketball, track, and violin. As a kid, Elgin excelled with little resistance and earned a stellar reputation in his community.
I knew that high school was coming, and my goal was to make the varsity football team. But I had one problem, man. You know what my problem was? I was little.
Never one to give up, he adopted unique training methods to gain muscle and started playing junior varsity football to give himself time to grow into the man he knew he would become.
You know what I did? I made me a home gym. I would do curls, I would do press. And for my bench, I made a little board. Just a board. Put it on the ground with a brick up under it so to have a little bit of an incline. That was my first bench. I'm telling you, man, when you are determined, you will find a way out of no way. And that's what I did, man. I started working on me because I knew I had to get bigger in order to compete with the big boys in high school. And you know, just in 1 year, I went from 104 pounds to 150 pounds.
This is the untold story of Elgin Davis, 44 to 40 docufilm.
How did I make it? Legendary ain't the question. I'm Elgin Davis. Legendary ain't the question. I'm the greatest. Legendary ain't the question. I'm amazing. Legendary ain't the question. How did I make it? Legendary ain't the question. I'm Elgin Davis.